Hello, this is Louise from Manchester. Welcome back to my channel. Today we've got a sad story to tell you about the demise of my betel leaf plants. So really there's not much to say, but you can see the state of this. If you scroll back you can have a look at some of my previous videos on some betel leaf plants I got a couple of months ago. And unfortunately, soon after, I knew there were going to be some issues with some of the plants, the roots, but other plants that I got had what appeared to be healthy roots, and I was pleased with those, and this is one of those plants. However, after potting them on, I did keep them on a heat mat, which may have been a problem. Because within days the leaves started to deteriorate. They looked really, like there was something wrong. So when I took them out of their pots, basically all the roots had gone brown, were slimy. And I tried to remove, wash off the roots, and basically we ended up with this situation, hardly any roots at all. This one, as obviously you can see, it's really bad. That is root rot. This has been in water since, so I've taken it out of the pot. Did the same with the others. The others have completely died off. This one seemed to hang on the longest. It's been in water since I got it, a few days after taking it out of the pot. And you can see that piece here, that's coming off, that's rotten, and this bit here is the only green bit left. The leaves are sort of, they've gone basically. Just sort of like dry, completely dry. So that's what root rot is. So all of them had root rot. It just wasn't as apparent because they came without the soil on them, and they're wrapped in wet tissue, and that can harbour, it's one of those things really. It can harbour, if there is any inkling of root rot, it's very hard to detect until you've actually got the plants planted up, and then you notice something's wrong with it. Unfortunately, I think what I should, in hindsight, what I shouldn't have done is put them on a heat mat, because the heat mat just provided more warmth for the bacteria to develop and accelerate. So I've got one plant to show you that is okay. So I'm gonna do a pause on this. But yeah, that's the disastrous part of the betel leaf story. But I'll show you another plant. Okay, so back here now with this one of the surviving plants, betel leaf, piper beetle or Paan. Obviously in a much better condition. It's alive, not dead, and seems to be getting new growth. There's a new leaf there. Just use this paintbrush to, little leaf there. That's the newest one. That came out first, that leaf, and there's a new one just here, and it's been covered by that one, which it'll make its own way up. So basically what I think happened with the ones that have died, I think combination of things they looked really, some of them were obviously not going to make it, and some of them appeared to be quite healthy and had nice roots. However, all of them came bare-rooted. This is the problem. If you get bare-rooted plants, you don't know how long it's been out of its soil, and once the roots are dry, it's hard to detect if there's any root rot there because they are dry. And there may have been, although they looked like perfectly healthy plants, some of them, when I put them in water, if there were any root rot issues in there, no matter how small, the water would have accelerated it straight away. Then I put them in that coir compost mix and put them on a heat mat. And I think the heat mat, combined with the very moist conditions that were in there, because initially I've obviously watered the plant into the new pot and put it on a heat mat, the heat and the moisture have accelerated the growth of the root rot. So it may have just been tiny amounts to start with, but after a few days I noticed the leaves starting to turn, some of the leaves started to fall off. Then I was getting little brown tips on the very new growth, so the new leaf that was coming out had a little brown tip to it, and then it didn't continue to grow, it just sort of stayed like that for a while. Then I sort of, reluctantly, first I checked the leaves, make sure there were no pests on the leaves, so I looked on the underside. Nothing on the leaves, nothing on the stems, and then tipped it out of the pot, examined the roots, and they were full of brown, slimy roots. So after washing the roots and removing the slime, there was very little left of the roots. They just basically disintegrated. And I kept whatever was left of these plants, I put them in water, changed the water every day, tried to scrape off of much of the root rot, because the root rot had travelled up to the base of the stem. Once it gets into the base of the stem, that's when you start to see the problems with the leaves deteriorating. So yeah, that was the lesson learned. So as a result of seeing that happen, this plant is not in a big pot, it's a much smaller pot, and the soil, well, it's coir compost and perlite basically, is very, very dry. I've given it just enough water for it to survive on. I've not watered the whole pot, I've just watered around the base here and let that come to the bottom, so it's not pouring through the bottom. And in these plastic pots, you can sort of tell if there's enough moisture, because you'll see condensation in the morning when the sun shines on it. Condensation will appear where the moisture touches the sides of the pot. And with a clear pot, the advantage is you can see if there's new roots forming, and there's a new root there. And you can see white roots. So that's a good indication that the roots are healthy, and hopefully they'll stay that way. So that's the lesson I've learned: not to put it on a heat mat, not to overwater, well, not to soak it basically. So if you get plant in the post and it's bare root, I will just be rinsing the roots under the tap, not leaving them in running water, not leaving them soaking, and then potting them up in just a very moist, well, I won't say very moist, slightly moist compost, and giving a tiny little bit of water, just enough to sustain the roots, and keep a very close eye on it. You might have noticed when I was showing you the baby leaf there, these little blobs, little sort of crystals there, if I can try and focus. There we go. So these are sugar crystals. They're not insect eggs. They're perfectly harmless. The plant produces them itself, so it's not like an excess of water. I think it just happens on, especially on the new leaves. It doesn't seem to appear that much on the older leaves. So the new leaves and on the stem as well, on the leaf petiole, you get these little blobs. You can also see little fine hairs on the back of the leaf there, on the stem. You can see that. And just here, it's a little bit out of focus. Try and get it back in focus there. So here is a new leaf coming from a leaf bud. So this is the leaf petiole, and when you sort of like stop the growth of a plant, so this bit here has been stopped, so the leaf's been removed here. The stem has to produce more, or if it's healthy, it wants to produce more growth, so it comes out of a leaf bud, and these on the Piper beetle appear right in the leaf petiole. So there's a new leaf bud there, and obviously there's that one there, and the one there that's tucked under the leaf. So these are three little leaf buds. And I think this other stem, which has lost leaf at the top, that may produce, might possibly produce in the future. So I don't know if you can see right down in there, a bit hard to say. There's a little bud there, so that will eventually, I'm hoping, produce a new leaf bud, and then you'll have another sort of like branch coming off this plant. And if you wanted to keep it a bushy plant, you could continuously keep nipping off this end here, and that will encourage lots of branches on your plant. You know, that's a choice thing, if you want to keep it as a bushy plant rather than a very long, leggy plant, because these are vining plants. So those are the lessons I've learnt on what not to do with your beetle leaf plant, and I hope those will be helpful for people who are buying beetle leaf and, you know, may have experienced the same problems as me. If you have, you know, please leave comments in the comments box below. Before I go, I'll just show you this plant here. You might think, oh, that's a lovely beetle leaf plant. It's not a beetle leaf plant, this is Piper nigrum. So what you've got there, Piper nigrum is a relative of the beetle leaf, and this is the peppercorn plant. It produces peppercorn, or gulmurich as they call it in Bangladesh. So the black pepper that you use in your pepper mill, this is what the plant looks like. It's also a vining plant, and this is a cutting actually from my main plant that I got in 2018, and I know it's pepper because it had peppercorns on it when I got it. This cutting is a year old, so the cutting I took, it's quite easy to do because very similar to the beetle leaf, they produce these aerial roots here. So if you can see, little aerial roots, and that when those roots get a little bit bigger, you can stick them in water, and then you've got a new plant. It's quite easy to root Piper nigrum. This one actually needs a new pot. It's got pot bound, and you can see I keep that pretty dry as well. So it's very, very light, this pot, and the leaves don't look as though they're deteriorating. They're just, you know, they're fine, they're glossy. And these also have those little beads on the back of it. This plant particularly, though, did have thrip, so I had to spray this plant, and so I've taken it outside, and there will be some dead insects on the back of this leaf. But those little black dots that you see there are the crystals. So after a few days, those white globs that you saw, they turn black. here you see these little white flecks. This might not be a good example there. I think the little white flecks, that's thrip eggs, so that's why I sprayed this plant, because there was quite a lot of thrip eggs on here. So those are dead, hopefully, and what I'll do is I'll just wash the plant off, but I'm going to leave it a couple of days, let the leave the residue of the insecticide that I sprayed on here. So I don't want to wash that off just yet. So this is in my kitchen at the moment, so I keep it at the back away from my other plants, and that's what I do when I find insects on them. I take them into another room, take them outside first, spray them, let them dry off, and bring them and keep them in a separate room just to avoid spreading the insects. So just another thing. So these are very similar in look to a Piper beetle, but they don't have the heart-shaped leaf. They're more ovate, and they don't taste like beetle leaf. So if I were to chew a little bit of this, it might fool some people looking at it, think, oh, that's a beetle leaf plant, but I can show you it has no taste at all, whereas these, strangely enough, have a very peppery taste, and that's what you'll find if you've ever eaten beetle leaf plants. They have a heat to them. There's a peppery heat. Some varieties have a sort of a sweet taste to them, but the ones that I've grown have always had this hot peppery taste, and it's very distinct. So yeah, just wanted to show you that. So Piper beetle, Piper nigrum. So thank you for watching. If you've got any comments to make about beetle leaf, or if you're growing it and you're having problems and maybe you want to share how you've overcome those problems, let me know. And please like and subscribe, share with your friends. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye bye.